Something, 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 blah, 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 intro to the channel. Welcome back. It's Odd One Out. Today, we have a special episode for you. Yesterday was International Women's Day, and who better to present this than the editor, the producer of the show, Odd One Out, Ashlee Spencer. Ashlee, I know that you prepared some notes today. What would you like to share with us about International Women's Day and just the movement and just women?
I did. So we're going to focus on I think I've got three big issues that impact women in our country. I first want to say, like I said, this is only three issues, so it's not by any means the only issues that women deal with. So if something comes to mind that impacts you and you'd like me to talk about it, would love to, please let me know. I also want to say 2 out of 3 of these issues focus on women who are parents. So I just want to point out, obviously, a woman doesn't have to be a parent to experience issues. All women, parent or not, we all have problems that we face in our country. I am just in my phase of being a mom, so these are the issues that I gravitated towards, but I just kind of wanted to start with that. Colin asked if he should be here or if this should be a solo episode. I told him I wanted him to join. I think it's very important for men to be part of these talks, and I think it's important for men to be a part of the solution to women's rights and women's issues. So glad to have you here. We're first going to talk about parental leave. Why in our country, that is supposed to be the best country in the world, it is not the standard for women / parents in general to have paid parental leave when they have a child. A few episodes ago, we talked about the House budget bill that was voted on. Something that happened during that, there was a representative from Colorado. Her name, she is Rep.
It's not Lauren Boebert.
It's Rep. I believe you say her last name, Pedersen. Representative Pedersen. She had just had a baby 4 weeks before this vote and was denied being able to vote virtually. So she flew across the country with her 4-week-old baby. He was only 1 month. Her 4-week-old baby stood up there, even talked to Congress and was there to vote with her child because they would not grant her the right to vote virtually after just having a baby. I don't want to go off on too much of a tangent, but I do feel like it's important in these situations to share a little bit of my own experience. When I had our daughter, at the time, my work provided no paid leave. I was able to have 12 weeks FMLA, which meant I could take 12 weeks off and my job was protected, but it was all unpaid. I was able to use my sick leave and my vacation leave that I had saved up, but no one's able to save up 12 weeks. I think I had about 4 weeks, which is about the same time where this representative was expected to go back to work. I, at 4 weeks, was struggling a little bit. I was a little unwell mentally. And once I kind of came out of that fog, we realized that I think I was struggling from some postpartum depression. And a lot of women do. And I just share that because it's not right to expect a woman who's going through that And there's a lot of things we're going through physically as well. We won't get into it, but at 4 weeks we're struggling physically, and a lot of us are struggling mentally, and we should not be expected to go back to work when dealing with that. I will say my job does have a program where people can donate leave if you're on FMLA and don't have enough leave to cover it. And I'm very blessed that my coworkers donated enough leave to me so that my whole time was paid. But it shouldn't be like that. Why should my coworkers have to donate their time for me to be paid after I just had a child? So that's just a little bit of my experience. Is there anything you want to share about our experience after?
Well, we're talking about women specifically, so I don't want to take away from that, but that's also just something in America. You would think that both the man and the woman would get, paid FMLA for having a child. You have some states like Minnesota where they have put that into law.
Mm-hmm.
And I think they have 12 weeks, which is great. You have some countries like the UK where it's a full year for both the parents. So I definitely think we need to do better, but especially by the women.
Mm-hmm.
Can you imagine having to take your 4-week-old onto a plane?
Right.
And hold your 4-week-old while you give your vote? Let alone, you're trying to get ready to go to work and appear in front of the television, in front of the whole world, and have your vote recorded. And whenever they speak in Congress, so long as you're not censored, all your speeches, all your votes are put down for all of history. So whenever she went to work that day, it wasn't just all willy-nilly. It was serious business. Mm-hmm. And she was expected to carry a 4-week-old in her arms. Kudos to both the baby and her. Those are two champs right there. It's unnecessary that they had to do that. I think it takes a lot of strength and courage to do what she did, and it's unfortunate that she even had to.
Mm-hmm. And I am glad that you brought that up, because that is something that I meant to point out also. Is that, yes, I am focusing on women's issues. However, I think all parents should get some type of paid leave when having a child. He got nothing.
I had like 2 weeks of PTO, and the rest was unpaid.
He had to use his vacation time.
I had to go back to work and leave her at home by herself.
And I think that would have helped me some if he would have been able to be there. Luckily, I did have family that came to help, but still, it was very hard to be feeling like I was struggling and doing it by myself, and he already had to go back to work. So I think there are a lot of benefits for both parents to get some type of paid leave. And you kind of touched on, well, let me give this statistic first, but you kind of touched on one that I had coming up. But as of March 2023, 27% of civilian workers in the U.S. had access to paid family medical leave through their employer. And this is according to the U.S. Department of Labor. Only 27%. That's horrible. There's no other way to put it. As you touched on, the UK offers up to 9 months paid leave.
I misspoke then in that case.
No, but that's still a lot. 9 months. Sweden offers 69 weeks paid leave.
Maybe that's why they're one of the happiest countries on the planet.
If you don't know how many weeks are in a year, that's more than a year paid leave. Canada offers up to 18 months paid. Again, more than a year. And this is all from a website called Velocity Global. And it's a website like for people who are running an international business. So they have a lot of facts like this so that people running an international business know what is standard to offer their employees. So that's where that came from. The U.S. ranks last among high-income countries for maternity leave policies. So we're not doing well. I will say my job now has changed its policies and now offers 6 weeks paid leave. So that is a step in the right direction, but that's that's just my job. It needs to be a standard thing that all employers offer some type of paid leave after having a child. And I think it is sad that we are supposed to be the best country in the world and we rank last among other high income countries for our maternity leave policies. I don't really have anything else to say on that other than it's not okay and it needs to change. There is actually a bill that could be voted on for government officials to be able to vote virtually after having a child. But currently it's being blocked and they're not letting them vote on it. I'm sure there's lots of ways you can take action on this, but if you look up Moms Rising, go to their website and there actually is a letter they have typed up and you can just sign it online. So that's kind of how they're taking action, at least for those women that are working in the government, for them to have some type of, a little bit of relief that way. Next, we'll talk about maternal mortality. So this is basically women who are dying during childbirth. I think it can apply to women who are dying like in the immediate postpartum period as well. But the U.S. has one of the highest maternal mortality rates of any wealthy nation. About 20 women per 100,000 live births. That is our maternal mortality rate overall. Another big issue with this is there is a huge disparity for Black women. It's even higher for them. So for Black women, it's 50 out of 100,000 live births.
2.5 times higher.
And this is all according to the World Health Organization. So ours overall is 20, 50 for Black women. Several European countries have rates in the single digits. So again, we're supposed to be the greatest country in the world. Why are our women dying while having babies? I found an article from August 2024, so right before, coming up before last year's election, and it quoted in there that, well, this is me quoting the article, sorry. It said the Biden administration, which in part is focusing on maternal mortality in this election year, and you could click that part. There was a link that took you to the White House website, where they used to have a whole blueprint of how that administration was working to improve this problem of our maternal mortality rate. Now, when you're in that article and you click that link, you get page not found. The current administration has deleted that off of their website. Even on the White House page, you can search the whole website. I searched maternal mortality to see if maybe they had it somewhere else. Nothing comes up. This current administration has no plan, nothing that they're working on to help solve this issue, which is, it's really sad that there was a plan in place on hopefully improving it, and now this current administration, I guess, they don't care. It's not on their priority list that women are dying. Well,
they haven't come out right and said this, but you can only assume it's literally no. This is exactly what's going on. It's DEI, and this has actually been proven that a lot of these information deletes, including at the CDC, anything that included the words diversity, equity, inclusion, um,
Which includes things for women. Like, women out there, wake up. If you think you're against DEI, you are DEI.
and
Women,
yep.
we benefit from DEI.
And no, it's okay. and it's really goofy too, because it was quite literally those three words that were in anything, and it affected even the CDC with trial evidence that they had and just different medical stuff that had nothing to do with what comes to mind when you think of DEI. Just simply because it'd be like the inclusion of the peptide and the blah blah blah, and it's like, oh, it's got the word inclusion, deleted, error code 404, page not found. So it's a direct attack of anything that's DEI, and women absolutely do fall in that category. And I've actually seen some comments from people that seem to think, women that seem to think, oh, women are not DEI, and it's like, I'm sorry, I know that you're a white woman saying that, you're still DEI. Anything that's not a white man is quite literally, by definition of how the world has been run, especially in America, it is DEI. So, just a little clarity on that matter.
This kind of circles back to our previous issue real quick. If you breastfeed your baby and you, at your work or wherever you are, you have a private room where you're able to pump, that's DEI. That is an accommodation for you. If you're out in public and there's a special room for you to be able to breastfeed your baby, that's DEI. That's a special accommodation. Being able to have your job protected if you're pregnant or having a baby, that's DEI. That is a special accommodation. So I do want to do an episode on this at some point, because I feel like people don't fully understand what DEI means, and it's really going to affect a lot of people that we are getting rid of DEI, because a lot of people, I feel like they don't understand what all it is, and that they probably are benefiting from DEI. So yes, that was a good point. And so yeah, I mean, just know that probably all of these issues are not on this current administration's agenda to solve. So it's up to us to keep fighting and to keep these issues on the forefront of people's minds, because they're certainly not making any plan to solve it. So it is up to us to do so. The last issue I want to talk about is violence against women, which kind of came up a couple episodes ago when we were talking about the case of what happened in Georgia to Laken Riley. Again, please hear me and let me preface that what happened to her is horrible and not okay. And that man 100% needs to be kicked out of our country. I don't care where he, someone like that, I don't care where he goes. Yes, he needs to be out of our country. But I just wanted to bring forward a more prevalent issue, that violence against women is not an immigrant issue. Unfortunately, in this case, that is who it was and that is what happened. But violence against women is a global issue, but it's a big issue in our country, with the men of our country. So yes, what happened to her, absolutely, it makes me want to cry every time I talk about it. It's horrible. I just don't like the way that the Republican Party has taken that story and is using it to spin their narrative of getting people to fear immigrants, because really violence against women is an issue of just men in general.
Yeah, I don't know if this is a corny example, but it's almost like somebody gets shot, and all the time the common denominator is it's a gun, it's a man, most oftentimes in these cases. But instead of saying, like instead of focusing on the gun, it's like it was a brown gun, and it's like you're making a boogeyman of something that doesn't have any actual real. It's not. That didn't happen because that person was an illegal immigrant. It happened because they were a violent man, and statistically, that is something that is very shockingly very high. The homicide rates against women, just the domestic abuse against women is very high, and it's almost always men. Obviously, that's not always the case, and sometimes the roles can even be flipped. But let's not kid ourselves. Let's not waste our time on talking about anomalies. Overwhelmingly, just across the board, it is a man issue. And so it is up to us men to own that, to swallow our pride, and to say, we got the testosterone flowing in us. I don't know if that plays a part in it. I'm not a human behaviorologist, whatever. But it's a man issue. We need to own up to it, and we need to be educated on it. So.
Yes, and I'm going to share some statistics, which you'll also see. Not only is it almost always a man who kills a woman when she is murdered, it's almost always a man that they know or that they were in a relationship with, which it makes it even more sickening, because a lot of times it's a man who was supposed to love and care about them who is being violent against them. That brings up a whole other can of worms, I feel like. But 41% of women have experienced either sexual violence, physical violence, and or stalking by an intimate partner in their lifetime. And this is from the National Domestic Violence Hotline. Every month, 76 women are shot and killed by an intimate partner.
Every month.
Yes, and that is, that's of course an average, but that's from Everytown for Gun Safety. They are an organization that does a lot of advocacy against gun violence. A study on female homicide victimization among 25 populous high-income countries found that 70% of all cases occurred in the U.S. So I don't know if that made sense, but basically of all female homicide, they studied 25 high-income countries. 70% of female homicides occurred in our country.
That's ridiculous.
Okay, and this is going to go back again to a disparity for black women. Again, compared to white women, black women are 3 times more likely to be murdered by a man. And that also, I didn't put this specific statistic, but also like this goes for any women of color, like indigenous women, Latina women. Am I supposed to say Latina?
Latina, yeah.
All women of color are at a higher likelihood. Sorry, I lost my spot. Oh, in 2021, and this is also something that affects transgender women as well. In 2021, 96% of all transgender people that were killed, 96% were trans women.
So much hate in this world. It's crazy.
And this is all from a group called Sanctuary for Families. That's where I got those statistics. And then lastly, homicide is the leading cause of death for pregnant and postpartum women.
That's crazy.
With 81% of these homicides involving a gun, and the majority of them occurring at home, which, to me, that part just means, again, that it was their partner, or someone that they knew who did it.
Not an accidental death, not a car wreck, a homicide.
Right. Or even, for postpartum women, there's a lot of risk, like preeclampsia, postpartum hemorrhage. There's a lot of medical risk. Not even that is the leading cause of
and
death.
not even
Homicide.
not even exactly. Not even suicide, which we're talking about depression if we're being real. So it's the other partner.
And again, I will bring up this point again. We are supposed to be the best country in the world. So why is homicide the leading cause of death for pregnant and postpartum women? That statistic, honestly, is like the most shocking to me and crazy to me. That, I mean, all of these statistics are shocking, but that homicide is the leading cause of death. And again, that comes from Everytown for gun safety.
And I really want to nail down, I think that there's so much violence that runs rampant in our nation and hate. And some of that is kind of obviously observed, but through the statistics that we're sharing right now, and then like I say, a crossover, this one's not women, although there are plenty of women in this case because they're girls. But for children from the ages of 17 and under, the number one cause of death is by firearms. What is up with our violence? What is up with our killing? Why are we murdering women? Why are we murdering children? And I got some news for you. Despite this Lake and Riley case, they're not typically illegal immigrants. In fact, they're very rarely ever that.
Right.
So, and actually, if we're talking about how this relates to women, I'm not gonna try to spout off the stat, but it's literally 90%. I won't say exactly what it is, but over 90% of homicide, the shooters are men. So, and white men typically.
Of mass shooters, yes.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's what
exactly what I was
about.
talking about. Yeah.
Yes, white men.
So it's.
Which I would also we can work.
We'll
we can
for sure do an episode on.
We can work on an episode about gun violence as well, because
and
it's
the kids dying from guns, the epidemic for kids, and I say epidemic, not pandemic. This is a United States issue.
Yes. So we will definitely work on an episode about that as well. So those are the three issues I had for this episode. I know, especially this last one, it's very heavy and not a very fun statistics to talk about, but like I said, this current administration we're under, they're not working on anything when it comes to women's issues. So I think it's very important to talk about these issues, keep talking about them, keep them on people's minds, and we have to be the ones to do the work because no one else is. And thank you for letting me do this. I'm very passionate about women's rights, women's health. It's one of my big passions. So this was a very important episode for me to be able to do. So to end on something positive, it is Women's History Month. So I read a book recently about a woman that I actually had never heard of before. So I thought, it's Women's History Month. Last month was Black History Month. So I wanted to kind of talk about her and tell you guys about the book, just to end on a good, educational, happier note. So the book I read was called Harlem Rhapsody, and it's by Victoria Christopher Murray. She is a Black author. Now, this was a historical fiction, so it wasn't all true, but it was based on a real person, and a lot of it was accurate on her life. So her name was Jessie Redmond Fawcett. She was an editor, poet, novelist, educator. Her work helped to sculpt African American literature in the 1920s. So, I mean, this was very early, Black people were being treated very badly
Horribly.
In our country at that time. But she was...
And so were women.
Yes. But she was very educated. She was doing a lot of work for women and for African American people in general. So she actually, a lot of her writing, she wanted to write about black characters and accurately portray them, because at that time
they showed them as stupid.
Yes, exactly.
And even like murderous and violent.
Yes.
Rabid.
And a lot of her writing was about black people who had careers and were educated, which was going on at the time, but a lot of society, they just couldn't fathom that these characters could be real. And yes, there were some white writers that were writing black characters, but they weren't portraying them accurately.
I mean,
as you said.
Quite literally. I'm not trying to make a caricature. That's the thing. They were caricatures.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not at all exaggerating. I've seen, like, it was a silent movie, and it's about a black man who is working on a farm, and he's shown as, like, ravage, and goes after the farmer's daughter and rapes her. And it shows him just being like, like, it's a complete boogeyman.
Mm-hmm.
And it goes to show the power of the media. It goes to show what culture wars do to us. It entraps us. It keeps us in place, and it gives us false presumptions about the people around us. And that includes women, too. We like to have culture wars on women, too. Like, get in the kitchen, go make me a sandwich kind of stuff. It's unacceptable. We're living in the 21st century in the greatest country on the planet. So it is really awesome to have authors like that,
Mm-hmm.
that are able to really bring the light to shine the greatness of the communities around us, and to dispel any of these stereotypes that we have that are, incorrectly assessed. So
Mm-hmm.
I think that is some really cool stuff that you shared with us.
Yeah, and like I said, like that was in the 1920s. So I mean, she did very important work. And she was also the literary editor of a magazine called The Crisis, which was, I mean, that was a big role for a woman to have, and especially a black woman to have in the 1920s. So I really enjoyed the book. It was very nice to learn about a woman in history that I didn't know about. So I just wanted to share some of her positive story. And if you like to read, I'd recommend, like I said, it's called Harlem Rhapsody by Victoria Christopher Murray. So yeah, I think that's all I have. Again, this was very important for me to talk about, so if you watched, thank you. If you have anything, women's issues or any issues in general that you want to hear from us, please let us know.
All right. Well, thank you so much for tuning in. We hope that you have a wonderful night. Odd one out.
Bye.
I see a little silhouette.